that, and let me smile, let me try this. And she like even brought up some different ideas, like made little faces that were definitely 100% Kenzie.
Hey you guys, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Tuesday, November 23rd, and I have some hot tea for you. I was recently looking at my channel, realizing over the last few months, it's been all Sister Wives and the Duggars. And it's just because there's so much happening, and these are huge families. And then I realized I have all this other stuff that I put out on Instagram that's not necessarily on my YouTube. And I would love you guys to follow me on Instagram so you can see what I'm working on and maybe get interest in some of the stories that we talk about over there. Because we were talking about the Turpins over the weekend. Did you guys watch the new special on 2020? I'd love to talk about it over here. I just don't know if you're interested. So if you are, check me out on Instagram, Without a Crystal Ball, and make sure you leave me some comments below and we can talk about it. So let's talk about the Duggars, because I got some tips yesterday that I think might interest you. So one of the big arguments right now in court is the defense that Josh Duggar is going to be able to use in his case. Is he or is he not going to be able to use other people? Will he be able to blame them? Who are these people that he will blame? What will his defenses be since he's not using an alibi defense? Who are the witnesses going to be? And what do the Duggars think is happening here in this case? Well, I've got some news for you. And this is exclusive. So grab your coffee, whatever you got, sit down. Let's talk about it. So remember how back in the day, over the summer, I told you how Jim Bob was basically telling everyone that a shady ex-con was downloading this. And Josh had given this opportunity to the shady ex-con, right? And Josh trusted the wrong people. That was the argument, and this was a big setup. Then it was the Bidens that were setting him up. Then it was Trump that was setting him up. The goalposts have not stopped moving. Let's just say new goalposts today. So Josh Duggar and Jim Bob are now telling people, allegedly, that the password for Josh's computer was visible to anyone that was in the car lot. So anyone that walked into that tiny little shed, I mean, it was a shed, a shack, 5 by 5, 10 by 5, I don't even know, not very big. The password was apparently on a Post-it note on the computer. And because the password was well known and visible to anyone, that means anyone could have sat down at that computer and installed a Linux partition using Josh's same password from his computer. They could also, put in a review on a builder's website that Josh and Anna used in Josh's name. They could text people from Josh's phone, allegedly. But because that password was on a Post-it note, they might argue that people, Josh's friends, would come in to the shack while Josh was apparently working and download this content. Because they're not going to use the alibi defense, okay? They're not going to use the defense that Josh Duggar was not there. So because they're not using the alibi defense, and because Josh Duggar can't argue that he wasn't there, and no one's going to be able to lie for him, they're somehow going to say that somebody else did it, or that it was accidentally downloaded. Okay, accidentally, like you just stumbled into the dark web, Josh, and accidentally set up a Linux partition and accidentally went to find Daisy's destruction and accidentally was on a BitTorrent website and accidentally asked the people, the agents, if people were here because someone downloaded CP and accidentally said that you might know about browsers, the Onion, Tor browser. But again, so the password was on a sticky, on a Post-it on the computer. And in a recent filing in court, Justin Gelfand pointed the finger at someone named Caleb Williams. And he was claiming that Caleb had sold a car for Josh in like March and had been at the car lot in March of 2019. And they could not rule out that he might not have had access to this computer around the time of what happened and all the content was downloaded. So in the filing about third-party guilt and why they argued that they should be allowed to do this, they bring up Caleb Williams' name. And this is where the exclusive part comes in, because I have some details about what their plans are with Caleb Williams. Because if you remember, they no longer can blame Joshua Williams because he was actually in jail. And they have bank statements now to prove that William Mize was in Missouri. So they have information that William wasn't there. They have information that Joshua couldn't have been there, that David Waller couldn't have been there, that Randall Berry couldn't have been there. So now they're shifting gears and they're going to blame Caleb Williams, allegedly, because anyone could have had the password. Caleb is techie and knew about all this kind of stuff. This is what they said on page 11 in their response to the government about third-party guilt. Furthermore, the evidence will establish that law enforcement failed entirely to investigate other individuals who unambiguously used the HTTP desktop computer at issue. Just by way of example, Caleb Williams regularly used the desktop computer in the months and weeks leading up to May of 2019. He also sold a car on behalf of Wholesale Motor Cars on March 27th, 2019, and used the HP desktop computer to print shipping labels. Even though all of the evidence has been in the government's possession, custody, and control for over 2.5 years, it appears that law enforcement has entirely disregarded it. To be clear, the point is not whether one of these particular people or someone else committed the crimes. It is that Duggar has the constitutional right to foster doubt at trial that a person other than the defendant committed the crime that is charged. So their claim is that he sold a car on behalf of Wholesale on March 27th, and he used the printer to print off labels. It doesn't say what date that happened on, and that he might have used the computer in the months and weeks leading to May. Now here's the problem with Caleb, is the Duggars are now allegedly telling people that Caleb is the shady ex-con and that he is the one that could have downloaded this because he has tech experience, because he is a registered SO. Yes, that's correct, except this is where their theory falls apart. Caleb Williams was living with the Duggars in 2018 after some stuff happened between him and a young girl. Caleb, who was 23 at the time, had gotten a 16-year-old pregnant. In the middle of a sticky situation up in Illinois, Grandpa and Mom sent Caleb down to stay with the Duggars. Smart, right? Because the Duggars have teen girls and Caleb just got a teen girl pregnant. Whatever. And Caleb actually was indicted in November 2018. So in November of 2018, Caleb was actually in Arkansas, and they had to extradite him to Illinois for a hearing. According to court records, he waived extradition, and he went to Illinois on his own accord, so he didn't fight extradition to Illinois. He was actually in court in Illinois in April, on April, I believe, 24th of 2019. So I looked at court records to see, was Caleb actually in this area at that time? Can they prove that Caleb was there? Is it reasonable to assume that Caleb could have been the person that did this downloading? Well, if you look at his court case, I don't think it's possible. Court records show this. So he waives extradition on November 28th, 2018. He goes up to Illinois. He has a bond hearing on December 6th. He has they have discovery disclosure due on the 26th. On the 22nd of February, they have a notice of status hearing with proof of service was filed. On April 24th, they actually have a hearing. So April 24th, 2019, he appears in a court in Illinois. And the next hearing is scheduled for June 4th of 2019. During that time, mind you, he's on bond. He's not allowed to leave the state. And he is on, he's out on bail. And he is in Illinois having these charges facing related to what he did to the girl, which he eventually pleaded guilty to, a reduced charge. He also spent 2 days behind bars, and he got probation. He's still on probation in Illinois. He has an address because he has to register every single year as an SO. So he's a registered SO in the state of Illinois. He's on probation currently, I believe. And so this is going to be easily disputed by the government, because all the government has to do is contact the court in Illinois, verify the terms of his bail agreement, the terms of his conditions of the bond, whether or not he had permission to travel out of state, what dates he was actually in the actual state of Illinois. Because if he's in Illinois on April 24th and he has his next hearing on June 4th, it's highly unlikely that in that period of time he was actually physically in the state of Arkansas. He was under the gloves per se of a bond agent in the state of Illinois. I highly doubt they're going to let him go down to Arkansas when he was facing these types of charges. He had to waive extradition in November, and then he goes back to Illinois. Do you think when somebody's out on bond facing these kinds of charges, and it was SA related to a minor, they're going to let him go back to Arkansas? And then he's in court on the 24th, and then he's also in court on the 4th. There was 6 weeks between those two hearings, and he was in court both times. I highly doubt he was in Arkansas. So they're going to try to present reasonable doubt. And it's interesting because they literally said that he sold a car on behalf of the motor car lot in March. They didn't say if he was in Arkansas selling that. They didn't say if he was on the computer. They said he printed shipping labels. We don't know if he was sitting in the office on March 27th. We know nothing. We know by the time he was actually in court, it was April 24th. Josh is allegedly downloading this May 13th through the 16th, and then he has to go back into court on the 4th. And at this time, he was not convicted of anything. He is now, but at the time he wasn't. So Joshua Williams was in jail. Caleb Williams was facing charges, and there's verifiable proof if the defense or the prosecutors want to look into Caleb to pose reasonable doubt or to poke holes in Caleb. And I think it's interesting because Josh's attorneys specifically say, we're not trying to say any one of these people did this. So they might know that this assertion that Caleb doesn't hold any weight, but they're still going to try to bring it up. And all the feds have to do is say, well, dude, he was on bond. He wasn't in Arkansas. Shut up. Every person that Josh has wanted to try to blame throughout all of this has eventually come back that they aren't there. And then all of the witnesses that they plan to call are either going to be able to call whether Josh was at that place at that time. They will be able to verify if other people were there at that time. And there's going to be other people that will testify to things that Josh told them. So people that were there will be able to testify. Were you there? Were you not there? Under the penalty of perjury. Josh can then say, well, Caleb Williams. And then the feds can say, well, Caleb Williams was out in Illinois. But the Duggars are trying to convince friends that it's Caleb Williams, allegedly because of the posted note and anyone could have accessed this computer. I really wonder if Jim Bob Duggar and Josh really think people are this dumb. And do you think a jury will believe it? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.